Ladies, y'all should smile more.
Pardon my podcast partner. He's just being provocative. He wasn't just talking about the chicks. He wasn't just talking about the ladies. Everybody should smile more. People are less happy these days. And there is a pretty simple way to be happier. And that's to smile more. It's just that simple. Dale Carnegie, for example. Dale Carnegie, in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, talks about how you can be better liked by the people around you and have a happier life simply by smiling more. It's the prettiest thing anybody can wear.
We look at the world and we say to ourselves, and we say, this is serious, and we got to fight for serious stuff. But what we forget is that we were designed to be happy. As human beings, we were designed to enjoy ourselves, to enjoy life. We've forgotten that.
In my family, it's well known that if you ever need to talk your way past trouble, whether it's doormen or traffic cops or whatever, just let Ari handle it. Because I have this one thing that I do, and it's not even a technique. It's just what I do is, let's say the traffic cop is coming down my car. I think to myself, everybody else is probably really rude to this guy. He's probably having a really nasty day. And you know something? I decided I like this guy. I'm gonna smile and be nice to him. I don't admit anything. I don't admit that I was going 20 miles over. I just, hey, how you doing, officer? What's going on? That kind of thing. And you have, the trick to making it work is to really mean it. The trick to making it work is, hey, listen, you're having a bad day, and I'm going to sympathize with you, and I'm going to smile at you, and you and me, while we're talking, we're going to have a good time together. I'm not going to give you any trouble. And a surprising amount of time, you get waved off with a warning. A surprising amount of time, you get a non-moving violation instead, just by being the one guy who was actually pleasant.
Most of the people in this world today don't really care about a lot of people. I'll give you a perfect example. Coming out of my block, there's a T at the end of my block, so I can either make a left or right going onto the main road. It's a busy intersection where there's not a traffic light there. I have a stop sign, they don't. So very often I can wait as long as 10, 15 minutes before I get to make a left or a right. Now, anecdotally, I'm going to put that out there that it is anecdotally, the majority of the people who will slow down to let me turn happen to be middle-aged fathers. That's the majority of them. Like, guys driving minivans or SUV, family SUVs, that kind of stuff. Those are the ones who primarily are the ones who let me go. And I couldn't figure out why. So I said something to my wife, and you know what she said to me? She's like, because who smiles the most in a family? I says, what do you mean? She says, who smiles the most? I says, the father, probably. That's why. She's like, no, he's the one who smiles the least. But what does the father do? The father protects everybody. And when everybody else feels safe, that's when he smiles. So what is he going to do? He's not just going to protect his family. He's going to protect other people too, because that's the nature. And that's what makes him happy.
See, by saying what we're saying, I'm not saying that you should blind yourself to risk. There are people, like genuine criminals. I practiced criminal defense law for about 10 years. And they're genuine criminals who will take advantage of fake social scripts to get close enough to commit crimes. And that's not the kind of people you should be smiling at. Those are the kind of people you should be getting the living hell away from. And you should learn to see what it is that they do to set you up. And that's not who I'm talking about when I'm talking about smiling more. I'm talking about just genuine social interactions. In those interactions, nothing beats genuinely being a pleasant person to be around.
You also have to understand that you're talking a lot of trauma here, for instance. Like, everybody who's ever worked in addictions knows that over 90% of all addicts have been, assaulted at some point, be it physically, sexually, emotionally, mentally. That's okay. So where am I going with this? There's an author named Don Miguel Ruiz. He wrote a book called The Four Agreements. He wrote several other books as well. So in an interview, he talked about we're looking at happiness the wrong way. He says, when something bad happens to us, we get this black spot on us. It's just this negative thing about us. Well, you're in a dark room. How do you find your way around? You turn on a light. He says, by adding light to the darkness, we're able to heal from the darkness and find that light will then go all over the place, where next thing you know, we're able to smile more.
And it's catching. If you're smiling, soon I'll be smiling. But the reverse is true also. If you're scowling and in a bad mood and frowning, that's going to put me in a bad mood, and soon I'm going to be scowling and frowning right along with you, and we'll both be unhappy. I remember a couple weeks ago, I was discussing with a family member about a tax bill. And I said, listen, we could either be upset and pay the tax bill, or we could smile and pay the tax bill. But either way, we're paying the damn tax bill. So a lot of times there's not anything to be gained by being in a bad mood anyway, even if something negative happens.
Right. But here's the thing, though. When we're in a negative headspace, what happens? We look at everything in a negative headspace. When we're in a positive headspace, we're actually able to see much more of what the reality is versus that negative side. We want to be able to make clear decisions. But think about it this way. You got a tax bill, right? You got to pay the tax bill. So if you do it happily, you find gratitude. And what is that gratitude? Thank God I can afford to pay that tax bill. A lot of people go to jail because they can't afford to pay their tax bills. So there's a gratitude there. There's a feeling of I can do this, and the more I do, the better I feel. The more I'm able to accomplish. The more I'm able to accomplish, the better I feel. Happiness seems to be a byproduct of doing these right actions over and over again.
You see, there are two kinds of problems in this world. They're just regular old problems, the problems that are going to crop up because we live in an imperfect world. The other kind of problem is called gratuitous problems. Those are problems that we create that we don't have to have. And purposely being less happy, purposely scowling, allowing your bad mood to take over is a gratuitous problem, in the sense that an adjustment in attitude can cause this problem to go away. It's a problem that doesn't have to be there. And it's also a gratuitous problem because there's this cottage industry in telling women that encouragement to smile is a bad thing. And I'm not saying that we should tolerate creepers or some dude coming up and saying, hey, lady, you should smile more. That's not what we're saying here, and that's not what what we would tolerate. But, look at what comedian or alleged comedian Hannah Gadsby has to say about encouragement to smile.
We'd never met. This was his icebreaker. He said, did you know it takes less muscles to smile than frown? Now, the men in the audience are sitting there going, oh, you've experienced an isolated incident. And the women are sitting there going, oh, for fuck's sake. And non-binary folk are like, is that a hard day for you, is it?
And of course, there's also certain revenge fantasies about men telling women to smile. Here's from the movie Captain Marvel.
Nice scuba suit. You need a ride, darling? How about a smile for me, huh?
A smile?
Yeah. I'm offering to help you. Least you could do is give me a smile.
How about a handshake? I'm Veers.
People call me the Don.
Wow.
Again, I'm sure that revenge fantasies against creepers is not unreasonable, but the notion that being told that you should smile is such a terrible thing, it's not serving anybody's purposes except for the people who are giving that message.
I go up to every woman who's frowning and say, hey, lady, you should smile more. I'm going to be a creeper. That's just what's going to happen. You just don't go up to random people and just be like, oh, you need to smile more. No, it's their choice is their choice. But the people that I'm in my life, Like I know these women here and these guys here, and I say to all of them, both men and women, it's like y'all need to smile more. Like let's find that gratitude. Let's find that place where we can do more. I'm going to point something out to you. If you look at the success of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12-step programs, one of the biggest things that they do is they scream gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. You write a gratitude list. What am I grateful for? Well, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. Well, what is the action that is going with that gratitude? Well, I keep the house clean, I make my bed, I do the things I got to do to take care of the home. So that shows my gratitude, because gratitude is an action which then permeates the rest of my life. That's the point that we need to find. We need to find that point where we do smile more, because what is the left doing to us? They're making us miserable by saying that we need to be miserable. We're focusing so much on our differences and not our similarities.
See, the woke have decided that we should not be happy until the new world that they want to usher in has come to pass. For example, they talk about patriarchy and that women should never be happy until the last vestiges of patriarchy have been swept off of the earth. And until then, you should be filled with revolutionary fervor. You should not be smiling. You should be serious about getting rid of patriarchy. And as a result, people who consider themselves woke, people who are believers in social justice messaging, they are measurably less happy than people who do not believe such things. In fact, it's even worse for women, because 3 out of 5 women, that's 60%, view woke ideas positively, whereas only 1 in 7 men, which is something like 14.2 something percent of men believe these ideas. And as a result, women's happiness has taken a hit. And if you can break free from this ideology, you're more likely just to be a happier person.
The biggest problem that I have with the left is they don't learn from their history. What was the most famous complaint about the Communist Manifesto that was written by Karl Marx?
That it resulted in the deaths of 100 million people when it was put into practice.
Well, that is also true, but we're talking about the actual document itself.
That it reduced human beings to groups, and people who did it tortured each other and put them in gulags. Is that?
We're close. We're getting there, but we're not there just yet.
Okay, all right. Just tell me, because there's so many problems with
the biggest problem that it had, and this is what all the other problems stemmed out of, is that Karl Marx refused to look at human nature. Human nature, we have certain base needs, certain base feelings, thoughts, as a society, as individuals, in the various sexes, we have various needs. And he dropped it. He dropped the ball on that. He didn't recognize that there was a need for that. Now, what are you seeing today with the woke left? The same thing. They're forgetting we have basic needs. You want to know something scary? They want to take away the patriarchy. They want to demasculate men. They want us to make us into like little girls, right? We're just all over this, that, and everything else. But go to a bar. Who goes home with a girl and who doesn't? The alpha males are the ones who go home with the girls. Not the betas, not the ones who are like, oh my God. No, they're the ones. Why? Because what do women naturally look for? What do men naturally look for? What are we really? Who and what are we? That's the point, is that when we start bashing everybody and we start differentiating everybody, we forget the basic need of a human being is connection. You know the old phrase, it's like we have more things in common than we do apart. It's like focus on that gratitude, and that joy and that happiness will come into your life.
Nobody bought into woke philosophy more than Page. And if you look at recent interviews, does not seem to be a very happy person. Just have a look.
And when it comes to the devastating impact of what politicians and governments are doing and saying, it's uncomfortable is an understatement.
the reality is I've never seen her smile. Never. And even when somebody will say to me, hey, look, here's smiler, you know, it's not a real smile. It's like, you know, it's
You could tell the difference between a genuine smile and a fake smile. I've studied the way emotions are expressed on the face for quite a lot. Paul Ekman, we did a podcast on him once. He talks what's called a Dufresne smile, and that is there was a scientist back in the 1800s, and he had a neighbor or something like that who had no feeling in his face. And what he'd do is he'd hook up electrodes to the person's cheeks and make him smile without it going up to his eyes. And you could tell the difference between that and a genuine smile. A genuine smile, and it's very hard to fake this. You really have to be in a good mood to fake it. The muscles that surround the eyes are involved in a genuine smile. And that's how you tell someone who's faking it, the grin and bear it smile, from somebody who really means it. And so that's how you do it. But the thing about people like Page is that woke is a philosophy that doesn't trust half measures. Going all the way back to Rousseau, he didn't trust that the world would gradually get better. Karl Marx famously talked about revolution where the working class would rise up and overthrow. And if you're going to make the working class better off with unionization or with better working conditions or whatever, it will remove their revolutionary fervor. And he was against that. He wanted the people who were downtrodden to be as angry as possible. This way they could be soldiers in his revolution to overthrow the order as it is.
My family has a story of my great-grandfather. Prior to the Great Depression, the man owned a couple luggage factories, you know, so where people made luggage. And the unions in the 20s, you know, tried to bust up his factory and get, you know, the workers unionized. So what happened? The union said, well, we'll get you this, this, and this. And the guy said, we already make more money than you promised us. We already have this. We get time off for this. We have this. And it turns out my great-grandfather was such a good factory owner that none of his workers wanted to unionize. And per my understanding, that there were other factory owners who were just like him who did the same thing. That's why a lot of those factories, you know, didn't wind up being unionized. But here's the thing, though. History doesn't want to talk about those guys. History wants to talk about the factory owners who would break up the strikes, or they break the unions, or how the unions overtook other factories. Like that's what history wants to talk about.
Yeah, because people who teaching history want you to be angry. And
wait, but there's more to that though. But what is it about conflict? What is it about that anger that they really want out of you?
What's that?
When you're angry, you're easily manipulated. That's what it's about. So if I make you angry, if I say to you, you are slighted, you are beat down, you are this, I'm going to get angry. So now I can manipulate you, right? That's exactly what Mao Zedong did. Chairman Mao, he was big on that, right? And what is the left doing now? Exact same thing.
So let's quote James Lindsay here. He's the guy from New Discourses who's read all the different woke texts in the original, and he goes on his podcast and just reads you what these people are saying in the academic journals. And here's what he said. To get a little historical, the whole philosophy behind woke is based upon the formulations of G.W.F. Hegel's vision from the early 19th century for how to move history to its intended end, which is the right side of history. And that's through conflict. Manufacture conflict, use the conflict, and move history with the conflict through a kind of social alchemy. You are the agents of manufactured conflict, change agents, or historical agents. What Hegel said about you, though, is history uses people and then discards them. As a movement, woke believes itself to be a movement of history. History is using you to move itself. Once it does, it will discard you. The conflicts of yesterday aren't relevant today, and they won't be needed tomorrow. The agents of history today lose their relevance in the instant they succeed, and history moves on, this necessarily without you and the conflict you generated. So if you're going to be tempted by the woke, if you're going to drink that Kool-Aid. You're just going to be used and tossed aside when you're no longer useful before. And many people who helped communist revolutions go through, and make no mistake about it, woke is essentially communism. People who helped communist revolutions come through were typically the first against the wall when the revolution did come.
Well, I mean, we had the whole thing with Chairman Mao, get the kids all excited. He's like, "Yeah, let's get it." It's like we all got to do for China. We got to do this for the communists. And, blah, blah. And what happened after they succeeded 2 years later, after they got rid of all Chairman Mao's enemies?
The Red Guards were all executed.
Exactly. Why? Because they were nothing more than manipulated. You get angry, you manipulate it. Now your service is done. You're done.
So, ladies, there's your choice. Happiness, better relationships with others, getting along with people, or being miserable all the time so you can be part of some nasty little revolution. Choose wisely.